Mail order bride abandoned for being too big. But a lonely farmer sees her differently. The spaceport on Frontier 9 was not a place of peace. It was loud, crowded, full of strange faces and stranger intentions. Ships landed and lifted like metal beasts, and the air tasted like fuel and dust. Most people came here with excitement, new worlds, new trade, new beginnings. Jake Harrison came with desperation. His farm was dying. His money was running out, and his heart had already broken years ago. He moved through the crowd, tall and quiet, with strong shoulders and tired eyes. His hands were rough from years of work, the kind of work no one thanked him for. If these new seeds didn't grow, he would lose everything he had fought to keep. But the universe had a different plan for him. He saw her before he realized he was staring. A woman, but not human, stood alone near the arrival gates. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She just stood still, like a still point in the chaos. Her skin was a soft blue, glowing faintly under the harsh lights. Her hair was white, falling like moonlight silk down her back. Her violet eyes looked too deep for this noisy place. What caught Jake wasn't her color. It was the way she was trying so hard not to cry. 2 heavy suitcases stood beside her. Too heavy for someone with no home to go to. Jake had seen mail-order companions come through this port before. Some found new families, some didn't. But he had never seen one abandoned like this. He tried to walk past. Truly, he did. But grief recognizes grief. He knew the way someone looks when they are trying not to fall apart. So he stopped. "You all right?" he asked, voice low and rough from disuse. The blue-skinned woman looked up, startled. I'm fine," she said quietly. Her accent was soft, musical, like wind through glass. "Just waiting. How long?" 3 hours. Jake's jaw tightened. No one waits 3 hours unless they have been left. "Your sponsor didn't show?" he asked. She hesitated. Then softly, he came. He saw me. Then he said I was not what he wanted. She looked down at her hands. He said I was too fat. Jake stared at her, really looked. She was strong, full-bodied, healthy. She looked like someone who survived things. And on Frontier 9, survival was the most attractive quality there was. "That man's a fool," Jake said. Simple, truthful. No hesitation. Her violet eyes lifted, and in them was not hope, not yet, just surprise that anyone might disagree with the universe that rejected her. "What's your name?" he asked, Leary Navin, from the Azurian Collective. "I'm Jake Harrison, farmer, 30 kilometers from here." Leary nodded politely, as if waiting for him to walk away now that introductions were done. But Jake heard his own voice say something he didn't plan. Something that came from a place deeper than where words are made. "If you need a place to stay," he said, "I have a spare room. You can stay there until you know what you want to do next." Leary froze. "Not frightened, but cautious. Why would you offer this?" "Because I know what it's like to lose your world," Jake wanted to say. Instead, he said, "Because you don't leave someone behind. Not out here. Not on the frontier." The spaceport noise felt far away now. Leary studied him. Those violet eyes seemed to search his entire being, like she was not looking for danger. But for sincerity, finally she nodded. "I accept, Jake Harrison. I will not be a burden." "Never said you would be," Jake replied. He picked up her suitcase. She picked up the other. People stared as they walked. Some confused, some judging. A human farmer. An alien companion bride. A pairing that shouldn't happen. But the frontier had never cared about rules. The drive back was quiet, peaceful. Leary looked at everything. The red-tinted plains. The twin moons rising early. The thin clouds drifting like smoke. "This world is beautiful," she whispered. Jake was startled by that. Most settlers only complained about the harsh soil, the strange weather, the loneliness. But Leary saw beauty in it. Maybe because she knew what it felt like to be unwanted and still choose to stay alive. Jake felt something loosen in his chest, something he thought was gone forever. When they reached his farm, Jake looked at the old farmhouse and felt embarrassment. "It's not much," he said. Leary stepped forward, touching the wooden railing of the porch like it was something precious. "It is peaceful," she said softly. "I like peaceful." Jake had not heard words that gentle in a long, long time. He did not know that bringing her here would change everything. Because far away, in corporate towers and government halls, eyes were already watching. Leary was not just a bride, she was a scientist who could expose a secret powerful people would kill to protect. Jake thought he saved her. Part 2. The Dying Fields. The next morning came quiet and pale, with a thin mist rolling over the fields. Jake woke early as always. The house was still, but it didn't feel lonely anymore. Someone else breathed in these walls now. He found Leary already awake in the kitchen. She stood at the stove, stirring something in a pan. Her white hair was tied back. The blue of her skin glowed softly in the morning light. She moved calmly, like she belonged here. Jake had not seen another soul move gently in his home in 3 long years. "You didn't need to cook," he said. Leary looked back, almost shy. "I wanted to." "It is custom when receiving shelter," Jake sat. He tasted what she made. It was eggs, but seasoned with something sweet and warm. "Cinnamon?" "No, something alien but comforting." "It's good," he said. A simple phrase. "But important," Leary smiled. "Small, but real." They ate in quiet. Not uncomfortable, just peaceful. But peace on the frontier never lasts. After breakfast, they walked the fields. The land stretched wide, red-stained soil, tough grass, and rows of crops that should have been green and strong. Wheat hybrids, bred to survive harsh worlds. But Jake saw something wrong immediately. The leaves were pale. The roots were weak. The young plants bent like dying soldiers. The future he depended on was fading. He knelt, jaw tightening. "No!" Not again. Leary knelt beside him. Her hands moved gently, carefully, like she respected the life of the plant even while examining its pain. "These plants are sick," she said softly. Jake sighed. "I know." "No," Leary continued. "I mean, not normal sickness." She lifted one small plant from the soil. The roots were covered in thin white threads. A fungus. But not a natural one. Leary's violet eyes narrowed in focus. Not fear. She was analyzing. Jake watched her, surprised. "You know this?" Leary did not look away from the plant. "I studied terrestrial agriculture. And defense. On my world." "Defense?" Jake asked. "Like farm defense?" Leary's voice became steady, professional, like someone who used to belong to something important. During territorial conflicts, enemy factions targeted food supply first. To starve populations, to control planets without firing a weapon. I worked to protect crops from such attacks. Jake stared. The rejected bride was a specialist. Leary continued. "This infection is engineered, not natural. Someone designed this fungus to attack human-compatible food crops." Jake's chest tightened. Someone did this on purpose. His farm wasn't failing. It was being sabotaged. Jake stood slowly. The wind blew across the fields carrying dust and loss. "Could it be the seed supplier?" he asked. Leary nodded once. "Yes, I think this began long before the seeds reached this planet." Jake clenched his fists. He had believed the seeds were hope. Now he saw they were a weapon. They returned to the house with samples. Jake set up his small lab table, old equipment, worn from use. Leary worked with delicate hands. She knew what she was doing. Her movements were sure, steady, precise. Jake realized she had hidden a lot behind that quiet voice. Hours passed. The sun rose high and burned the land in yellow light. Finally, Leary spoke. "It is worse than I thought." Jake braced himself. "This fungus is not just engineered," she said. "It is designed to spread fast and to adapt. If it roots in one settlement, it will reach others." Jake's breath slowed. "That means every human farm on Frontier 9 is at risk." Leary nodded. "And possibly beyond. Every human-settled world receiving the same seed shipments could fail within one season." Jake's stomach felt cold. This wasn't a bad year. This was war, silent, secret war. Why? He whispered. Leary looked up at him. Her eyes were calm, but not numb. She understood pain without letting it break her. Because humans are expanding, she said. And there are those who believe you should not. Jake stared at her. Humans had always been stubborn and proud. They worked harsh soil and built homes where no one thought life could hold. They kept going. Someone, somewhere wanted to stop that, wanted to starve them out, quietly, without making it look like murder. Jake exhaled slowly. We need proof, he said. And we need help. Yes, Leary agreed. We must go to the Colony Agricultural Center. They have better equipment. And Part 3. The Truth Behind the Seeds. The Colony Agricultural Center stood on the edge of Frontier 9's main settlement. A metal building, plain and practical, built for work, not beauty. Its windows reflected the pale sunlight of a world still young, still wild. Jake and Leary arrived just before noon, dust from the road still settling on their boots. Jake pushed open the door, familiar with this place. He had delivered crops here, asked for advice here, hoped for answers here. Today, he brought problems instead. Inside, lab techs and scientists worked quietly among equipment and glowing screens. The air smelled like soil and metal, the smell of farming mixed with science. A thin man with long fingers and tired eyes looked up when Jake entered. Ellis, one of the few educated colony scientists willing to work this far from civilized space. Jake Harrison, Ellis said, surprised. Didn't expect to see you this soon. The new seed shipment should have just started sprouting. Jake didn't smile. It's the seedlings, Ellis. They're sick. Ellis blinked. That was not normal. Not this early. He stood straighter. Show me. Leary stepped forward and held out the sealed sample container. Ellis noticed her immediately. Her blue skin, the quiet way she observed everything. This is Leary, Jake said. She knows plants. More than most, Ellis nodded respectfully. Let's take a look. They moved to a lab table. The room hummed softly with machines. When Ellis examined the sample under magnification, his expression changed. Fungal infection, he murmured. That shouldn't be possible. Soil sterilization protocols. It's engineered, Leary said, calm and certain. Ellis froze. Jake saw fear flicker behind his eyes. What do you mean engineered? Ellis asked slowly. Leary pointed to the screen. Natural fungus spreads uneven. This pattern is uniform, designed. Look, here root invasion architecture modified to recognize Earth origin wheat proteins. Ellis stared at her. You're saying someone made a fungus that kills human food crops on purpose? Leary nodded once. Ellis rubbed his forehead, stunned. That means we're under attack, Jake finished. The room felt colder suddenly. Ellis moved to another machine and opened encrypted files. Shipment data, supplier codes, genetic profiles. His hands shook. Jake, he said, voice tight. These seeds came from Galaxy Corporation, right? Yes, Ellis swallowed. Then we have a bigger problem. He tapped a screen. A list of seed shipments appeared. Not just to Frontier 9, but Frontier 7, Frontier 12. Huron Station, Vega Outpost. 5 more human-majority colonies, all receiving the same seeds. Jake stared. Every one of those settlements depended on crops to survive. No crops meant no food. No food meant evacuation or death. Someone wasn't attacking one farm. Someone was attacking every new human colony. Leary did not look surprised. Only sad. This is not new, she said softly. Many species fear human expansion. Humans do not stop. You build where no one else would try. Some admire it, others want to end it. Ellis looked between them. Why target food? To make the fall look natural, Leary answered. No bombs, no battles, just hunger, and hunger forces surrender. Jake felt something heavy settle in his chest. He thought his farm failing was personal tragedy. Now he saw it was a weapon. Can we prove this? Jake asked. Ellis nodded shakily. Yes. The fungus genome has markers and lab markers. Manufacturers usually hide them, but if I can compare this code to Galaxy Corp's seed database, we'll know who made it. Leary's eyes sharpened. Then do it. We need evidence. Ellis moved quickly. He inserted the sample data into the colony network and began decrypting corporate seed archives, a crime that could get him imprisoned, even executed depending who was watching, but he kept going. Jake stood beside him. Leary watched the hallways, and someone watched them. A quiet beep sounded, not from Ellis's machine, but from the building's security. Console, unauthorized. Network scan detected, an automated voice announced. Ellis paled. They know someone is accessing their records. Jake didn't move. Keep going. Ellis's hands flew across the screen. Almost there. The final file unlocked. A logo appeared. Galaxy Seed Division. Agri-weapon prototype program classified. Authorized personnel only. Jake's heart slammed hard. Ellis whispered, voice shaking. They're testing a biological weapon on us. Part 4 Attack on the Farm. There are moments in life where choices build slowly, and there are moments where the universe decides for you. This was the second kind. The armed men in the agricultural center stood like shadows with guns. Their leader, the tall alien with smooth black eyes and a face sharp as a blade, watched Jake without blinking. We will take the evidence now, the alien said calmly. And you two will come with us. Ellis, the lab tech, stepped back. His voice was shaking. You can't. The colonial charter protects... The alien cut him off. The colonial authority approved this program. We have more protection than you can imagine. Jake felt Leary tense beside him. Not shakiness, not fear, readiness. Jake had been a soldier once. A different life, but the soldier was not dead. He stepped forward just slightly, blocking Leary with his body. No, Jake said again. The alien's smile did not move his eyes. Human stubbornness. Predictable. The mercenaries raised their guns, and the fire alarm exploded in blaring sound. Ellis had hit the alarm panel with his elbow. A split-second decision. One that could cost him his life. Run! Ellis shouted. Jake grabbed Leary's hand. They moved fast, through the emergency exit and into the sunlight outside. Footsteps slammed behind them. Energy shots crackled. The air burned. Jake didn't look back. He didn't need to. He could feel death reaching for them. They reached the transport. Their old field truck, parked outside. Drive. Jake yelled. Leary didn't ask questions. She jumped into the driver's seat and started the engine. The transport roared into motion as energy shots hit the dirt behind them. Jake leaned out the window and returned fire with an old rifle he kept behind the seat. His aim was sharp. Military memory did not fade, but the mercenaries had faster weapons. Newer, corporate. A shot hit the back of the transport. Metal sizzled and smoked. Hold on, Leary shouted, voice strong, not afraid. She swung the vehicle onto a dirt path that led away from the settlement and toward their farm. Dust rose behind them like a storm, but the mercenaries followed. The chase did not stop. For miles, the transport shook over rough ground. The engine strained. The air was filled with the sound of pursuit. Jake looked over at Leary. Her eyes were steady. Her hands sure. She was not the abandoned, rejected woman he met at the spaceport. She was someone who had survived before. He felt something inside him shift. Not fear. Not panic. Trust. They reached the farm just as the sun was dropping behind the hills. The golden light made the fields look almost peaceful, like the world wasn't falling apart. Inside, Jake shouted. They ran into the farmhouse. Jake slammed the door and locked it. Leary rushed to close curtains, but the farm was too open, too exposed. Jake moved to the gun cabinet. He didn't have much. Frontier law was strict, but he had enough to protect what mattered. Leary watched him. You have done this before, she said quietly. Jake paused, his breath heavy. The memories darker. Yes, war on Earth, before I came here. Leary stepped closer. She placed her blue hand gently on his arm. Then we do it again. Together. For a moment, everything was still. 2 broken lives. 2 wounded hearts, standing in a quiet farmhouse choosing to fight. Not for glory, not for heroism, but to protect something small and good in a universe filled with cruelty. The mercenaries arrived fast. Their armored vehicle rolled up the dirt road, engines rumbling like thunder. Jake and Leary crouched behind overturned tables and crates. The house went silent. Then, the front door shattered inward. Energy shots lit the room in flashing white. Jake returned fire. The air filled with heat and smoke. One mercenary fell. Another rushed forward. Leary moved. She wasn't a soldier, but she was precise. She grabbed a fallen stun baton and struck with clean, efficient force. The mercenary dropped. Jake's breath caught. Where had she learned that? But there was no time to ask. The tall alien stepped inside, his black eyes locked on Leary. "There you are," he said softly. The scientist who escaped her world and thought she could hide among simple farmers. Jake's blood went cold. "You know who she is," Jake said. The alien smiled. "Of course. She was part of Azuria's Agricultural Defense Council, the one who opposed bioweapon testing. She was supposed to be silenced years ago." Leary's hands trembled, not from fear, from anger. Jake stepped between them. "You're not taking her." The alien tilted his head. "And who is going to stop me? You? One broken soldier with a dead farm?" Jake didn't answer with words. He fired. The alien stumbled back, surprised, but not defeated. His armor absorbed most of the hit. Jake knew they couldn't win head-on. Back, Part 5. A sleeping enemy wakes. Fire changes everything. It destroys. But it also reveals what was hidden underneath. Jake and Leary watched from the darkness as Jake's farmhouse, the last piece of his old life, burned. Flames licked the roof. Embers rose into the sky like dying stars. The warmth of the fire did not comfort. It only reminded how cold the world could be. Jake had lost everything once before. He thought he couldn't lose again. But watching his home collapse, he felt something inside him harden. Leary stood beside him, her blue skin glowing faintly in the firelight. She didn't speak. She didn't offer empty sympathy. She simply placed her hand in his. Jake didn't look at her, but he squeezed her hand back. There was no need for words. Their bond had already begun. They moved under the cover of night, heading toward Coopertown, a small settlement hidden in Frontier 9's eastern valley. Jake knew the people there. Hard workers, fighters, survivors. If anyone would listen, it would be them. But the roads weren't safe anymore. 3 times they had to hide as corporate patrol drones passed overhead, scanning the ground with cold white light. Galaxy Corporation wasn't just cleaning up evidence. They were hunting, not crops, not farms. People. People who knew the truth. People who could talk. People who could fight back. Jake and Leary didn't speak during the walk. Silence was survival. But Jake's mind was loud. This wasn't just about him anymore, or his farm, or even Frontier 9. This was a war for every human colony in the outer systems. Someone wanted to erase humans from the frontier quietly, cleanly, without public outrage. Jake had fought in wars before. This one was worse, because the enemy didn't fire bullets first. They used hunger, they used silence, they used patience. Coopertown appeared as the first light of dawn touched the sky. 20 homesteads in a circle around a central hall. A fence of steel poles and energy shields surrounded it. Not strong enough to stop an army, but enough to delay an attack. Jake and Leary were stopped at the gate by a guard holding a plasma rifle. The guard recognized Jake immediately. "Harrison, what the hell happened to you?" Jake didn't waste time. "We need to see Tom. Now." The guard nodded and signaled the gate to open. Inside, people were already gathering for morning work. Children, mechanics, farmers, tough people with tired eyes. When they saw Leary, many stared. Curiosity, caution, uncertainty. Frontier settlements were used to seeing aliens, but they weren't. Used to seeing one standing beside a human, like they belonged there. Tom Cooper came out of the main hall. Broad shoulders, thick beard. A man who once led soldiers through battlefields and now led farmers through droughts. He took one look at Jake and didn't ask pointless questions. "Start from the beginning," Tom said. Jake told him everything about the seeds, the engineered fungus, the lab raid, the burning of his home. The room went silent. Maya Cooper, Tom's wife, crossed her arms. If this is true, then every farm here is already infected. Ellis, the lab tech, stepped forward from the crowd. Jake hadn't expected to see him there. Ellis looked exhausted, his clothes dirty, like he had run through the night. "They tried to arrest me," Ellis said. "I escaped and came here. They're covering their tracks. They want to blame the crop failure on poor soil adaptation. They'll let us starve and call it nature." Tom slammed his hand on the table. "Not if we stop them first." That was the moment everything shifted. The settlers didn't panic. They didn't cry. They didn't break. They stood up, rough hands clenched, voices hardened, hearts steadied. Humans were born on a world that tried to kill them every day. Storms, ice, fire, hunger, poison. They adapted. They survived. "You do not starve a species that evolved from struggle." Leary stepped forward. "I can create a treatment," she said. "I know how to stop the fungus, but I need time, and equipment, and something else." She hesitated. "Hexavalent rhodium," Ellis finished. "A catalyst mineral. Not common." Tom nodded. "I know where it is." Jake looked at him sharply. "The northern ridge." Tom nodded again. "Scavenger territory." The room grew still. Scavengers were not animals, not monsters, not exactly. They were native frontier predators, fast, intelligent, and territorial. Most mines in the northern ridge had been abandoned because of them. Jake met Leary's eyes. Fear was not in her expression, only determination. "We go," she said. "We don't have time." Jake nodded. Part 6 into scavenger territory. There are places on Frontier 9 where even the wind refuses to go. Places where footsteps mean death. Places the map shows, but no one talks about. The northern ridge was one of those places. Dawn was only beginning when Jake, Leary, and Davis left Coopertown. The valley behind them was calm, still waking. But ahead, the land rose into jagged red mountains, shaped by wind and time, and by things that hunted silently. The sky was pale gold. The air sharp and cold. Davis moved first, stepped silent, eyes scanning every shadow. He was a man who spoke little, but when he did, it mattered. "No loud talking," Davis said. "Scavengers hunt by vibration. They feel the ground move. If we run, we die," Jake nodded. Leary nodded. The path narrowed as they climbed. Stones crumbled under their boots. Strange claw marks scratched the rocks. Old, deep. Jake glanced at Leary. "You okay?" he whispered. Leary did not look afraid. She looked focused. "I am where I choose to be," she said softly. "That is enough." Jake felt something warm rise in his chest. Respect, admiration, something more. But feelings could wait. Survival could not. Hours passed. The ridge grew darker. The sun could not reach this high. The air changed, dry, thin, full of dust that tasted metallic. "We're in scavenger territory now," Davis said quietly. Jake and Leary slowed their steps. A single sound echoed through the canyon. Chitter, chitter, chitter. Not loud. Not close, just aware. Leary stopped breathing for a moment. Jake whispered, "How many?" Davis didn't look back. "If you hear one, there are at least 8 watching," Leary's hand brushed Jake's. He squeezed her fingers just once. Silent reassurance. They moved. Slowly, every step intentional, every breath measured. The ridge walls narrowed into a corridor of stone, perfect for an ambush. Jake remembered military training. Never walk into a space where you cannot move and cannot see. But they had no other path. The mineral they needed, hexavalent rhodium, formed only here. In this canyon, in rock that glowed faint blue under sunlight. The only cure for the crops. The only chance to save the colonies. One risk to save thousands. Jake stepped forward. "Keep moving," he murmured. Then everything went quiet. Too quiet. No wind. No insects. No birds. Even the dust seemed to stop in the air. Davis froze. "Don't move." Jake didn't blink. Leary looked at him, then slowly turned her eyes upward. They were above them. Scavengers clung to the canyon walls like living shadows. four-legged, long-limbed, bodies covered in rough stone-gray skin that blended with the rock. Their eyes glowed faint yellow, watching, studying, waiting, not beasts. Not mindless, intelligent. One moved. The others shifted. The canyon felt alive. Jake didn't raise his gun. He knew better. Predators didn't attack prey that wasn't running, Leary whispered, barely audible. They are beautiful. Jake almost laughed, quietly. Only Leary would say something like that now. The scavengers watched them. And then, slowly, disappeared back into the rock. Jake let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Davis stepped forward again. They let us pass. Good sign. Means we're not threatening yet. Leary nodded. Then we move with respect. Jake looked at her. She didn't just understand plants. She understood worlds. They reached the ravine where the mineral should be, a deep crack in the earth, glowing faint blue in the shadows. We found it, Davis said. Relief washed through Jake. Leary knelt at the edge and scanned the stone with her equipment. The device hummed softly. This is enough rhodium, she said. With this I can stabilize the cure. Jake smiled. The first real smile in days. Then take what you need, he said. Leary began gathering the glowing fragments. Careful and precise. That was when something new sounded. Not scavenger chittering. Engines. Fast. Close. Coming from above. Davis swore under his breath. Corporate shuttle. Jake's blood went cold. The mercenaries had tracked them. A sleek gunship roared overhead, cutting across the canyon like a shadow of death. Spotlight beams slammed onto the rocks. There was no time to run. Leary grabbed the last mineral sample and shoved it into Jake's bag. Go! She shouted. Jake grabbed her hand. Stay close! But the ground began to rumble. The scavengers had heard the noise. Chittering rose. Not quiet this time. Angry. Ready. The scavengers swarmed the canyon walls, leaping, climbing, surrounding. The corporate mercenary. Part 7. When humans stand together, some wars are fought with armies. Some wars are fought with weapons. But the most dangerous wars are fought with truth. Truth spreads. Truth burns. Truth wakes those who were silent. And the enemy was about to learn what happens when humans wake up. The underground river carried Jake, Leary and Davis through darkness until they were thrown out into the open, water splashing across flat ground under a twilight sky. They gasped for air, coughing, soaked, bruised, but alive. Coopertown stood ahead, but something was wrong. Colonial authority banners hung from the gate. Armed soldiers patrolled the walls. The settlement was under lockdown. They reached here before us, Davis breathed. Jake's jaw tightened. He should have known. The corporation had money, ships, power, influence. But Jake had something they didn't. People, community, Leary, and the cure. Leary squeezed his hand. We still finish what we started. Jake nodded once. Let's go. They used the emergency tunnel, the one Tom built years ago, the one no official knew about. Crawling through the dark, hearing guards walking overhead, hearing distant shouting, hearing fear, then a hatch. Then the storage cellar. Then the lab. And there, waiting with red eyes and a battered face, was Ellis. You made it, he said. Jake shut the door behind them. Is Tom still holding everyone together? Ellis nodded. Yes, but Captain Thax is making threats. He's saying the settlers have to surrender the alien and all evidence, or he'll level the town. Jake's fists clenched. He had seen war. He had seen cruelty. He had seen men like Thax before, but not anymore. Not today. Leary set the glowing rhodium samples onto the lab table. Her hands moved with calm speed, mixing, heating, stabilizing. Jake watched her, awe quietly replacing fear. She had been abandoned, rejected, called too soft, not fitting, not enough. But here she was, saving worlds. Davis secured the door. Ellis watched the street cameras. Jake stood guard, and Leary worked. Blue hands steady, eyes focused, each movement sure. Minutes passed like hours. Then, a soft hum. A bright, shimmering blue liquid, she exhaled slowly. "It is ready," Leary said. "The cure is complete." Jake felt something like hope crack open inside his chest. Not small hope. Real hope. Dangerous hope. Revolutionary hope. Ellis rushed to the communications console. "I can broadcast this cure recipe to every settlement in the frontier," he said. "Once they have this, Galaxy Corporation cannot starve humanity anymore." Jake placed a hand on Ellis's shoulder. "Do it!" Ellis connected to the colony emergency broadcast network, his fingers shaking, but determined. The signal went out. Every human farm, every frontier town, every colony struggling in silence received the cure, free, no permission. No payment, no control, just hope. Jake didn't realize he was holding his breath until, bang, 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 the lab door shook. "Open this door now!" Captain Thax roared from outside. "Or we execute the settlers one by one." Jake turned, no fear in his eyes, only fire. He opened the door. Captain Thax stood outside, flanked by armored soldiers. His vertical pupils narrowed in rage. "You humans never learn," Thax hissed. "You could have starved quietly, died quietly, but no, you resist." Jake stepped forward, tall, steady, unstoppable. "You tried to erase us," Jake said. "You thought we were weak." If you enjoyed this video, like this video, subscribing, and clicking the bell icon to stay updated with fresh content every day.